On a hillside above Niterói, two men are lying on their backs, side by side, in identical positions. Beside each of their heads is a mask cut from a sheet of lead. There are no eye holes in it. In a notebook near them, a line of handwriting. 1830. Swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals. Wait for signal, mask. Whatever they were expecting, they had decided it would not be safe to look at. There are no wounds on either body, no sign of a struggle. Nothing broken, nothing burned. They had walked up that hill carrying a large sum of money, enough by one account to buy a used car. When they were found, almost all of it was gone. Their watches were still on their wrists. In their belongings were 2 unused bus tickets, return tickets. Niterói back to Campos. For 60 years, this case has been told as a story about the sky, about lights over the hill, about men who went looking for something and found it. It isn't. The reason nobody can tell you what killed these 2 men has nothing to do with the hill. It has to do with a refrigerator. Campos dos Goitacazes, in the north of Rio de Janeiro state. August 1966. Miguel José Viana is 34. Manoel Pereira de Cruz is 32. They are electronics technicians. The men you call when a television transmitter stops sending. On the 17th of August, they tell their families they are going away to buy materials for work. Most accounts say they name São Paulo. They do not go to São Paulo. They take a bus in the opposite direction, toward the coast, and they get off in Niterói, across the bay from Rio. In the early afternoon, it is around 2:30, they are carrying between them roughly 2,300,000 cruzeiros. Nobody has ever established where that money was going. What they did in the next 4 hours is documented almost minute by minute. It is the most ordinary afternoon you will ever hear described. They buy raincoats. There are receipts. They buy a bottle of water at a bar. The bottle carries a deposit, the kind you pay and get back when you return the empty. 2 men on the last afternoon of their lives paid a deposit on a bottle. A waitress will later say that one of them, Miguel, seemed nervous, that he kept looking at his watch, that he had the manner of a man with an appointment he could not be late for. And then they walk out of the bar toward a steep, overgrown hill on the edge of town called Morro do Vintém, the Hill of the Penny. That is the last time anyone sees either of them alive. 3 days later, a boy chasing a kite goes further up that hill than he means to. The 20th of August. A boy flying a kite on Vintém Hill finds 2 bodies. The ground there is bad, steep, dense, hard to climb with equipment. It takes until the following day for police and firefighters to reach them properly. This is what they find. 2 men in formal suits, wearing new waterproof coats, lying on their backs, arranged neatly, in what one newspaper will describe as identical positions. Beside each of their heads, on the ground, a mask-shaped plate cut from lead. No eye holes. Cut roughly, as if with tin snips from scrap sheet. An empty water bottle. A packet containing 2 wet towels. And a small notebook. Almost everything you have ever heard about this case comes from what was written in that notebook. And almost all of it is wrong. The line everyone quotes reads, in Portuguese, Estar no local determinado. Ingerir cápsulas. Após efeito proteger metais. Aguardar sinal máscara, 4:30. Be at the agreed place, 6:30. Swallow capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Wait for signal. Mask. That is the whole of it. 4 fragments in a working man's notebook. The rest of the notebook is not occult at all. It is full of numbers and codes. The reference markings of electronic valves. the tools of their trade. For 60 years, retellings have described those lead plates as radiation shields, and the men as amateurs protecting themselves from something atomic. They were not radiation shields. Anyone who has compared them to real shielding says so plainly. They were two pieces of lead, shaped like masks, with nothing to see through. Which brings us to the only question that ever mattered. What was in the capsules? And the answer is that nobody looked. The bodies had been on that hill for 3 days in the Brazilian heat before anyone found them. By the time they reached a table, they were badly decomposed. The autopsy did not happen for weeks. No test for poison was ever run on their organs. The reason given is almost too small for the size of the case. An autopsy assistant, known only as Maneca, is reported to have told the investigating officer that the organs were never sent for toxicology because they had rotted in the refrigerator at the Forensic Institute. The refrigerator was broken. A year later, in August 1967, the bodies were exhumed and more material was taken. By then they had been embalmed. The formaldehyde used to preserve them had destroyed the chance of detecting whole classes of poison. What could still be tested came back negative. Read that again in order. A note that says, swallow capsules. 2 dead men. And not one usable toxicology result, ever. The men who might have answered this were failed twice by their own institutions. And there's a second thing nobody chased. They left Campos with roughly 2,300,000 cruzeiros. When they were searched, one man had about 157,000 in his pocket. The other had 4,000. Everything they are known to have spent, the bus, the raincoats, a bottle of water, accounts for a fraction of a fraction. Roughly 2 million cruzeiros is simply not there. And yet robbery was set aside early because nothing looked robbed. Their possessions were undisturbed. Nobody had taken the watches off their wrists, so we are left with 2 facts that do not sit together. Nothing was stolen from them, and most of their money is gone. With no cause of death and no accounting for the money, the case became a space that anyone could fill. And people did. In September 1966, weeks after the deaths, the investigating officer reached a conclusion. A parapsychological experiment that had gone wrong. That was a police opinion. It was never a forensic finding. Police questioned a man from Campos who knew them and who described himself as a spiritualist. They found nothing against him. He was released. He was never charged with anything, and nothing since has changed that. Technicians who knew the men suggested lightning. It had been raining. But there was not a burn on either body. And on the evening of the 17th, a woman named Gracinda Barbosa Coutinho de Sousa told a magazine that she and her children had seen something over that hill. Large, round, orange, with a bright red ring around it, hanging in the air for several minutes. That account is why most people have heard of this case at all. It is one family in one magazine, and it is tied to 2 dead men by nothing except the calendar. The investigation ran for 3 years. Then it stopped. On the 12th of May, 1969, the case was archived. No cause of death, no charges, no explanation of the money. What is left is a short list of things that are true. 2 men bought return tickets and did not come back. They carried a great deal of money up a hill, and it was not stolen, and it was not there. They lay down on their backs, side by side, in identical positions. And beside each of their heads, they set down a plate of lead with nothing to see through. because whatever they believed was coming at 6:30, they had decided it would not be survivable to watch. We will never know whether they were right, because the organs that held the answer were left in a refrigerator that did not work. This is the case of the lead masks. This is Dark Atlas.